Welcome to the REI Agent, a holistic approach to life through real estate. I'm Mattias, an agent and investor.
And I'm Erica, a licensed therapist.
Join us as we interview guests that also strive to live bold and fulfilled lives through business and real estate investing.
Tune in every week for interviews with real estate agents and investors.
Ready to level up?
Let's do it.
Well, Erica, sometimes things don't go as planned. Welcome back to the REI Agent. I'm Mattias, I'm one of your hosts, and we are here with Erica, my lovely wife and co-host.
Which thing that didn't go as planned are you referring to?
well, we had some technical difficulties with our camera, so forgive if you're watching this on video. We're a little bit dark, and I think that the camera was searching for focus due to some settings that I thought I corrected. I tried to use a different lens. Anyway, sorry about that, guys. If you want to listen to the audio, it should be totally fine. If it's distracting, just look away. No, but we had my daughter is home for Indigenous People Day, Columbus Day.
It's not Columbus Day.
Not at all. Okay. All right. Indigenous Peoples Day, and she came in, with an emergency and let the dog in because dog will follow us anywhere. But anyway, so she came in and needed to be logged into Netflix.
She just said she couldn't access Netflix. To her credit, she came in very quietly and crawled on the rug and sat right here beside me, and so she was out of the camera view the entire time.
My first reaction, and honestly, it's not a great one. I get mad. I'm like,
right,
why can't you wait?
Pack that.
Why can't you wait? We knew this was happening. Like, you could have waited. You could have watched something else. Like, there's a lot of things you could have done instead of coming and interrupting. But I was listening to our guest, Jordan, too, but in my mind, I kind of like took a second and was like, you know what? She's a kid. It's okay. Like, this is very important to her. This is her moment to watch TV, which is not, doesn't happen very often. And she really wants to watch something on Netflix. And so it was very, very important to her.
So what reaction would you like to have?
Honestly, like, at the end of the day, like, if she would have been on screen, it wouldn't have been that big of a deal, right? Like, it's oh, hey, like, I think, welcoming her and embracing her probably would be the best approach, even though she was, there with you, but like having that kind of mentality versus, just frustration.
It's funny, my initial reaction wasn't anger. It was more trying to read her face and figure out whether it's sort of an emergency, because there have been some things going on just in how she's been feeling recently, physically, that, do I need to respond to something? How do I figure out if it's an emergency or not without disrupting the guest in the podcast? That was my first reaction. And then I was like, oh, she's in second grade, she can read. So we were sending like text messages, kind of writing on the text message pad, like back and forth to each other. And then we figured out it was Netflix. And I said, you can wait 10 minutes and we'll be right out. But just in my mind, I was thinking, oh my gosh, what if it is something that like she's in a lot of pain, or she needs help with something, and I can't just push that away. And then how do I handle that? Yeah. That's me being in, how do I be in professional mode and parent mode at the exact same time?
Yeah, that's a better response. But she would have also been screaming if it was something was wrong. But anyway, it reminded me also of this weekend you went to had a weekend out, a girls' weekend, went out and hung out with one of your best friends.
Mm-hmm. And I had a great weekend. Yep, we went up to the mountains in a condo cabin. We went hiking. I haven't been hiking alone in years.
Normally you have to carry me up the mountain when I get cranky.
Yeah. I was just thinking about, the last time I was hiking was not that long ago. It was in Switzerland in July, but that was probably one of the most beautiful places in the world, and I didn't feel like I could be present to it because not everyone around us in our family was enjoying the hike. Wasn't you? So anyway, it was a beautiful fall day. The colors were pretty vibrant, and it was a hike that hiked up along the waterfall the entire way there, so you don't have to wait till the end to get to the nice part. And then, I know this is going to sound really cheesy, but once I got to the top, there's a beautiful overlook. We were in the sun. It wasn't too hot, and I had the best apple. And I don't usually eat apples for whatever reason. I don't know. I don't love them, but that one, it was exactly what I wanted. It was so delicious.
Sugars, a little hydration.
Oh, I just soaked it in. So I had a great weekend. You were at home.
I was home with the kids. So the responses that I was just having kind of also reminded me about how I was with my kids the whole weekend. I was able to really focus on them. I didn't have too much work that I needed to get done. And if I did have work, I could kind of say, hey, I have 3 kids with me right now. I can't really get to you right now or whatever. I was able to delegate pretty well my time. But no, I had a really good time. I think it's interesting when you leave. I think we kind of all go into these different modes. The kids, I think, also kind of okay, so now what do we expect? We're kind of this new adventure. What are we going to do? Which could be good or bad. And I tried to run with the good and, kind of be hey, this is going to be an exciting weekend. We're going to do all this fun stuff. So we had the neighbor kids come over to a movie night. We had them practice a song for a talent show. We got the PA system and the mic out there they could sing to. And we went to a jump park, and so just try to fill up the time with things they can look forward to, and also things I could be hey, look, if you're not getting along, if you guys are choosing to be nitpicky and fight each other, you're not gonna be able to do this, and so having that that leverage too was really helpful. The one thing I'm really proud of this weekend was to really trying to help them understand. Our 2 oldest girls, they can get in this mode of they're just going to be sassy to each other, or they kind of can get a little bratty to each other, or what's the right word? But I thought they'll kind of you're stupid, or things like that, and then it just spirals into getting mad and kicking each other and screaming, and I would tell them hey, we need to reset. You will not be able to earn this thing if you continue with this kind of behavior. And then once they do, I went back and I explained to them, look, do you see how much more fun you're having right now when you're not focused on tearing the other person down? And you notice how the other person is also being kind to you when you're not focused on tearing them down, but you're being nice to them. And all that to say is that we actually then went as far as building we created a poster I want to print and put in the room. We used AI, and we just wanted a cute animal picture. So they chose a unicorn and a narwhal, and it was supposed to be really happy and rainbowy, colory kind of thing. With the headline with the big words on top, you get what you give. And I'm hoping that can be some sort of mantra in their heads a little bit. I think it's a fairly simple thing that even our 4-year-old can start to grasp. But hopefully they can, more than just if they're mean or kind to their sister, they'll, get that back. But I think that if they can learn that more deeply and think about it, if they work really hard, if they put a lot of effort out into something, they're going to get more in return for it. And kind of taking ownership of their life and not just focusing on, well, she did this to me, so I'm going to do this to her. That's not helpful. You have control in how you respond to that person. You have control in how you respond to your environment. That's the only thing you have control over, and that's how you can directly impact what comes to you from there on out. in a unicorn and narwhal picture. So I was happy with how the weekend went overall. We were all very glad to have you back there.
Yeah, you held a little seminar.
I did not break out the PowerPoint presentation, but that's the kind. They are in for something when they get a little bit older. I think they're going to probably get a lot of speeches.
It was interesting when I came back home, what happened in the first, well, I don't know, 40 minutes.
Yeah.
And then it sort of evened out. But as soon as I as soon as I pulled in the driveway, it was like an emotional explosion happened.
It's like a dam bursting or something.
Yeah.
They were holding it in.
It was everything all at once, directed in like every different direction.
Yeah, you know how like when a dog's scared or something, they'll like sometimes attack each other. Like, you know what I'm talking about? Like they're not like necessarily mad at each other, but they kind of don't know how to handle their energy, so they like kind of felt like that. Like they were fighting each other too, like the girls at least. Sawyer was kind of just doing his own thing, but yeah, it was this very, and then it was 40 minutes, and then we were able to reset,
and then everybody was fine. It makes me feel like I need to, like when I come home from those trips, I need to put on like football gear or something, or like a helmet. Yep. Yeah, I have to come home and be ready to work.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that has to happen. I mean, and I think one of the things that we can be intentional about, and actually one of my this accountability group mates, he tries to take his kids on a solo parenting trip or something every quarter. And so this is, kind of similar to that. It'd be kind of fun for me to take them on a trip as well. But having that intentional time of me being with them alone, I think is really helpful for maybe getting used to that, knowing that it's okay if mom's not around, knowing that dad can also answer questions.
Okay, I will work on booking my next trip.
Not till next quarter.
I hear you. I hear what you're saying.
You used quarter
we need
four
to happen more often. Got it.
But no, I think it is really important. I think I really connected with pretty well this weekend, so it is an important thing.
Yeah, well, I have a conference next month in about 3 weeks, so you'll get to keep working on those seminars, part 2.
We'll have to post it printed by that.
Anyway,
yeah,
we had Jordan Berry here today.
Jordan is coming out of Orange County. Jordan got into the laundromat business and has a pretty crazy story. That was not, as smooth as you might have expected, but kudos to him because he stuck through it. He owns multiple, and he is teaching others how to do the same.
Yeah, he has a coaching program, lots of different resources for anyone who's interested in getting into the business. And he was a lot of fun to talk to you also.
He did just a little teaser. He mentioned that normally you're expecting about up to like a 20% return on your money and your investment. And that's not finance, that's not leverage, so that even gets better if you leverage. So it can be a really lucrative investment. He is also an agent, and so encouraging, basically, this could be a route for other agents to start building a passive income as they go to help balance out their ups and downs of market swings and cycles and times of the year. But without further ado, Jordan was an awesome guest, so let's have him on. Jordan Berry. Welcome back to the REI Agent. We have the honor of speaking with Jordan Berry. Jordan, you're coming out of Orange County, and you are a laundromat specialist. So welcome.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me on the show. And it's kind of a weird. Nobody's ever put it that way, and it feels a little bad to be a laundromat specialist. It's not super exciting, but I guess I am a laundromat specialist. Yeah.
No, but it is. It is a very interesting model. I have heard a couple of thoughts about how to kind of nuance that space a little bit more than people might expect, which we could maybe chat a little bit about as well. But I also have a friend that he operates a laundry business out of his basement. He's in a townhouse. He does like a pickup and like delivery kind of service for basically people that are just, don't have time to do their laundry, and he fulfills that need. So wherever there's a need, I mean, we need to fill it, right?
That's right. Yeah, that's exactly right.
What brought you to the laundromat space? Where, let's start with that. How'd you get there?
Yeah, well, as a kid, I was just dreaming of owning a laundromat someday. No, I'm just kidding. Said no one ever. No, so I was a pastor and a youth pastor for almost 15 years, and when I married, had some young kids, and it was just time to transition out of doing that full time. So I was trying to figure out what to do, and like you said, I live here in Southern California. We own our house here, and I had a great idea, which was, why don't we rent out our house here in Southern California, take the money we have in the bank, let's go buy a condo on the beach in Hawaii, and do whatever, like who cares, like sell jewelry on the beach or whatever in Hawaii. And then if our kids are school age and we want to come back, we can come back, net gain condo on the beach in Hawaii. And my wife said we could do that, or we could buy a laundromat. And so we bought a laundromat and not a condo on the beach in Hawaii.
Wow.
But the idea behind that was she had a family friend who he was working a high tech, a tech job in the Silicon Valley, and he was making good money, but he was working 70, 80 hours a week. And he bought one laundromat, replaced his income, and was working 5 or 10 hours a week. And we're like, yeah, that sounds great. Let's do that. So that's the direction we went. It did not turn out like that for us early on there, but that was the motivation behind it.
The start.
When you and your wife had that original conversation about should we move to Hawaii or buy a laundromat, was that an easy decision between the two of you, or was there some like back and forth? Like, well, I mean, Hawaii sounds kind of nice.
It felt like an easy
Tempting.
decision for me, but apparently not. I mean, come on. I spent many nights in that laundromat in Hawaii being like, in that laundromat being like, I could be in Hawaii. Yeah, I could be in Hawaii right now.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it was a tough decision, but I mean, I saw the idea behind it, and I was like, okay, well, maybe that just delays our journey to Hawaii a little bit, but sets us up in a better position. So yeah, I mean, it was a little tough, but moving to Hawaii is a big move, and buying a laundromat down the road's not as big of a move, or at least it didn't feel like it. So it was a little tough, but we were both on board.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's awesome. I was thinking about our relationship dynamics, because I feel like I would be both the person wanting to move to Hawaii and the person wanting to buy a laundromat.
That's probably true. I'm trying to think what my response to that would be.
I don't think you would have come up with the laundromat idea, but you would have, helped make sure that we did a smart move.
Yeah, I get to pick the laundromat. You said when you first started, it didn't. I forget how you worded that. It didn't work out as planned. There were some bumps there.
Yeah, so I mean, the idea behind buying a laundromat for us, and I think a lot of people, I think this is what makes laundromats so intriguing for a lot of people, is you can make a pretty good return on your money. So just for context, the average sort of base hit laundromat deal, it's gonna net you 20 to 25% return on your money, unleveraged. Wow. So once you throw a loan on there, it can go up from there. And like I mentioned, you can run these things with very little time commitment if you set it up that way. You can also run it with a lot of time commitment if you set it up that way. So, but I think that's what was appealing to it for us. But it ended up being, I'll just be candid with you, since you're psychoanalyzing me anyways. I'll just put it all out there. I'm just kidding. No, but I mean, I didn't know anything about business. I didn't know anything about real estate investing. I didn't know anything, about laundromats. I didn't know anything about anything really. And I did as much research as I could, but this is over a decade ago now, and there really wasn't a whole lot of information out there like there is now on how to run this business. And so I relied almost entirely on on the broker, the one person who stood to gain from me buying this laundromat. And it just turned out that broker did not do me any favors, and he sold me a dream that was never going to happen with that particular laundromat that he sold me. So ended up, we lost a lot of money early on, and spent a lot of time trying to figure out this business. So instead of money coming in with very little time, it was money going out, and I was spending a lot of time doing it. So it was pretty much worked out for us early on there, exact opposite of what we were going for.
But kudos to you for sticking through and continuing. And it sounds like you figured out the mistakes or the misled, unfortunately, parts of that. And how do you now approach deals and to circumvent that kind of problem?
Yeah, it was rough. Learned some very expensive lessons there, and it's why I do what I do now with sharing how to get in this business and how to run this business online, and having a podcast also and all that, because I was like, man, nobody should have to learn the lessons that I learned the way that I learned them. I'll just tell you the lessons, right? But it was rough there early on for sure.
Did you have like a mentor, somebody you could bounce ideas off of, who could teach you things too?
Not really. I did not. I spoke with the family friend a little bit, but his experience was just so different than ours. Once I kind of got in and realized what had happened, and that things were not going to turn out the way they did for him, at least initially. He just didn't know how to help me, and which was understandable, because he just had a very different experience. He bought his laundromat; it was a good one, and he was making a lot of money doing it and having fun. I was not having fun and losing a lot of money. I didn't know anybody else in the industry at the time. And I did try to reach out to people, and there were people who, kind of gave me some advice. And then there were other people who were like, I don't know, thought I was trying to spy on their businesses or whatever, and would yell at me and kick me out of their stores. So
oh my God.
It was, I don't know. I was grasping anyway. I was desperate for a little while there. Like, I know there's a way out of this. Just, I don't know what it is. And there's a stat that floats around here. And to this day, I'm not entirely sure where it comes from, but the stat basically says 95% of laundromats are successful. And so I just could not believe that I was in the 5% that can't figure out this easy business. But then there I was, not able to do it. So it was rough.
I was just gonna. What's the culture of like where you're living in Orange County in California? Are you? Yeah. What's the city town culture like in terms of like owning businesses and people, like the community there? I guess is what I'm trying to ask.
Yeah. So here in Orange County, there's a lot of business owners here in Orange County. It's I really like Orange County. It's very friendly. My laundromats, however, in LA proper, LA and East LA.
Okay.
And so it's very different feel over there for sure. So, and a little more competitive over there. It's just densely populated, and there's a lot of laundromats over there. So it gets pretty competitive.
Is that like every person for themselves kind of a culture, or I'll help you out, I'll look out for you?
So my early experiences was like an every man for himself, for sure. Like I was not getting help, and honestly, I didn't know exactly where to reach out for help. There were no there's an association, and I reached out to them too, and it didn't help me very much at the time. Yeah. And again, that's why I created the platform I created and the community that I'm trying to put together and all that, because I didn't have that, when I needed it. So
makes a lot of sense. Do you still own that one, or did you end up offloading it?
I just sold that one about a little over a year ago. Yeah.
Okay. And you own others, I imagine, then? Like you since bought more? And tell us a story about how you moved into the next one.
Yeah. So, So the next one, I was in the throes of losing lots of money and trying to figure out this business. And I got an off-market deal brought to me that was a seller finance deal, and it came with the real estate in LA. And so it was kind of like this unicorn. And I was like, okay, this is, I made the mistakes early on, but I'm not making those mistakes again. So that deal came to me while I was still struggling with this first one. It was, I don't know, maybe like 9 months later. So I ended up buying that one too, seller finance deal with the real estate and the laundromat, and running that. One thing I found, which that was great, but one thing I found was that when you are still struggling with one business, I was hoping, okay, if I buy this other one's performing well, it can help me cover this one until I get this one up and running, right? That was the theory. But one thing I found was that when you've got problems over here on one side and then you take on something else, well, there's inevitably going to be problems over here. And one thing I say a lot is like, people want passive income. That gets thrown around a lot in real estate world and otherwise, right? And while you can make laundromats pretty passive, they're not passive. Anytime you're dealing with machines or people, you're going to have problems, and laundromats have a lot of both of them, right? So you get problems that come up, and all it did was sort of divide my attention between the problems, which I think made it slower to get this one up and, profitable, the first one up and profitable. So it was good and bad decision kind of all at the same time.
Yeah. What are some of the surprising things that have popped up with machines and people owning these laundromats? Yeah.
So, most laundromats, especially in LA, but all over, most laundromats, you're in a demographic that's probably a lower income demographic. And sometimes the areas are a little rougher. My laundromats are in rougher areas. So, I mean, there's a lot of stuff that comes up, a lot of like vandalism or people trying to break into machines or, get free washes by figuring out ways to try to scam the machines, that kind of thing. So all that stuff happens, graffiti, all that stuff happens. And there was a lot of other stuff that happened, a lot of some crazy stuff that went down too. But the other side of it though is that I found like, one of my laundromats is in South LA, right? It's like where all the 90s gangster rappers came from on the West Coast over here, right? Like rough area. But I'll say like, even in these rough areas, like 98% of the people are great people, right? And so, it's just a small minority that makes, I think, probably most rough areas, right? And so that actually was surprising on the good side of like, hey, most of these people are really great people. And, the reputation is one thing, but when you actually get in those communities, which is one of the benefits of laundromats, by the way, is that you actually have an opportunity to make a difference in a community and do something good for a community. Most people are great people.
Yeah, I'm sure too, if you spend time there, you probably have the same people coming in. I'm sure people like the routines, they probably come in to wash their clothes at the same time every week. And you got a couple hours to kill. And so you just hang out and chat.
Yeah, it's what I call like a habitual business or like a rhythmic business where, usually you got the same people come in on the same days at the same time, more or less. And so you really get to know people there, and people get to, it's one of the few places that people still in the community, at least, still come together, on a regular basis and meet each other face to face. So they are kind of unique businesses in that way. And I think that's part of what makes them great, actually.
That's cool. Can you break down what financing typically looks like for these type of properties? So like, I would imagine you mentioned earlier that the one came with real estate. I know that was owner financed. But I would imagine sometimes you're buying business and then you have to continue to rent the property, correct? Can you finance the business at that point? And what does that loan look like?
Yeah. So one thing I found, like I've done, consulting now all over the country and beyond for the last, handful of years. And so one thing that I've noticed is that much more often the laundromats come with real estate if you're in the middle of the country, and much more often you're leasing the space if you're on one of the coasts, which, makes sense. Real estate tends to be more expensive on the coasts and all that. But both can be true anywhere. You can rent or buy anywhere. So if you're renting, yes, you can buy the business, you can finance it. A lot of people assume that the value of a business is in how much the equipment costs, which, by the way, the equipment is not cheap. It's expensive. However, the value of the business is valued like any other business or commercial real estate, right? It's in the net income, and then you're going to apply a multiple to that net income.
Sure.
And so based on that, you determine a value. And then in terms of financing options, there's lots of different ways you can finance. Sometimes you can use an SBA loan, although sometimes you can't, because SBA really wants to see everything in line. And all jokes aside, all laundering money jokes aside, I guess not all jokes, because here's a sort of half joke, which is sort of half joke, half true, is that I always say laundromat owners are either really bad at keeping the books, or they don't have any, or they're really good at keeping the books. Maybe they have more than one book even,
It's a cash business.
Yeah, so SBA doesn't like that,
Sure.
sees that as risky. And so, a lot of laundromats aren't going to qualify for SBA, but some do. You can get a conventional bank loan from a bank or a credit union. There are laundromat specific lenders that you can use.
Okay.
Typically, they're going to want somewhere in the 30 to 40% down. So you can't leverage as much usually, unless you're using SBA. As much as real estate, but still not bad. And then obviously, the mythical unicorn of all investment, which is seller financing, which actually is more common in laundromats than in something like real estate. But that also is a double-edged sword, because it's more common because a lot of times it's hard to verify the income, the expenses. And so a lot of times it's harder to get financing. So if a seller wants to sell, they either got to find a cash buyer or sell with some seller financing. So you just got to be careful in that situation, but it can be a great way to acquire a business too.
When you sold your laundromat, did you do seller financing?
I had a cash buyer for mine. So it's interesting because of, I think, a raised profile online from like Cody Sanchez, Brandon Schlichter from Investment Joy, all the people collecting quarters online. I don't know, maybe you've seen like TikToks or whatever, people collecting quarters and having fat stacks of cash. Like that's very, draws the eye. And so it's kind of raised the profile of laundromats. And so right now there's probably more buy demand than sellers at the moment. So, finding buyers is easier than it has been in the past.
Wow, that's so interesting.
So when you have a place up and running pretty smoothly, what's your time demand on per laundromat, if you could average that out? Because we were talking about how could this be a good opportunity for real estate agents to maybe buy a side hustle, buy something that is passive, quote unquote, right? To kind of even out the ups and downs of the market.
Yeah, totally. So I've got, so I'm a real estate agent, and I've got other buddies who are real estate agents that have bought laundromats. So you for sure can do both there. So I'm going to answer your question, but I need to qualify it by, it depends a little bit on the business model that you have, right? So self-serve laundromat, you may only need on average 5 to 10 hours a week, and 10 on the high side. Like if everything goes wrong, you can set it up to where you need that. And especially now where there's more technology, tools, resources than ever before to help you sort of manage your business. A lot of Machines will tell you when things are broken down. There's digital payment systems, so you don't always have to do the coins, which is not good for TikTok probably, but makes managing the business a lot easier. So, accounting's all kind of embedded in there. So there's some things that really help streamline stuff. Cameras where you can have two-way talk. So something's happening, you don't have to drop everything. You can just pop on your phone and be like, hey, get out of here. I'm calling the police. So 5 to 10 hours is, pretty common there. Now, the business can actually be more than just what we think of when we think of laundromat. The service side of the business is actually growing hugely right now, which is like drop off laundry or pick up and delivery laundry. And that, since COVID especially, has been booming when people started realizing I don't have to do laundry ever again. Somebody will do it for me. They'll even come to my house and pick it up dirty and leave it on my doorstep clean and folded. And so, depending on how you run that business, you may have that all set up to where, you've got employees driving, you've got employees, processing the laundry, and the software to help run it all. And again, that only needs a little bit of oversight, especially if you've got, a business that's doing well enough to have sort of a manager helping you run it. But it might be a little more time involved there if you've got the service side of the business. So you might be more like 10 or 15 hours a week.
Yeah, that's interesting, and then maybe a good segue to talk about it. I think I saw even people were approaching Airbnbs for that service as well. So doing the linens for the Airbnbs. Is that something that you've looked at?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Short-term rental. There's a lot of actually small businesses, spas, salons, restaurants, small motels or hotels. There's a ton of different small businesses that can give you, a decent bulk order that's on a regular basis to help you kind of lay a foundation for that pickup delivery when you're starting it. And then when you add residential on top of that, it can be a really great business. A lot of laundromats doing a lot of money every single month doing that pickup and delivery or drop off laundry.
That's awesome.
Have you looked at laundromats outside of the country in different areas around the world too?
Yeah. I've had a few people from outside of the country on the podcast before. So we've had some people from Europe, some people from Southeast Asia, some people from Australia. And I've got one coming up from South Africa
Cool.
in a couple of weeks here. So yeah, definitely looked in South America also. Yeah.
Oh, cool.
In Brazil. So yeah, I've definitely looked at laundromats, and it's interesting because they're very different than here. Here, the trend has been going towards larger laundromats, larger machines. Like we've got, 80 pound, 100 pound, 120 pound machines, which is, probably our top loader ones, maybe like 12 or 15 pound. And so when you're 10X in that, these are big machines that you're doing everything all at once there. So that's the trend here, is going bigger stores and bigger machines. But in a lot of these other places, small stores are actually, with 5 or 8 machines. Those are actually much more common. So Europe, South America, Southeast Asia, even Australia, I've seen that being the trend.
That's what I was curious about. Has anybody paired it with like a coffee shop while they're sitting there waiting for their laundry to be done?
Yeah, coffee shops, bars, salons, anything where restaurants. I mean, anything where when you're doing laundry, if you're doing your own laundry, right, you're just sitting there for a while while the machine does its thing, right? So it can be a lucrative business model to have something else for people to do, to spend their money on while they're spending their time at your place. The one thing that you need to consider, though, if you're going to do that, is that now you're running 2 businesses.
Right.
So you've got to sort of be savvy enough to run 2 businesses, I guess. But yeah, it could be a great model for sure. People are doing stuff like that.
I'd be curious. That makes me think of, okay, we'll buy a piece of real estate and then sublease or lease out spaces to other people that want to do that kind of services. But then that brings in the question of how much do machines cost and how hard is it to get started up? Like I would imagine you said the machines were very expensive, so like getting a one up and running from nothing is probably not very easy.
Yeah. So if you were buying the real estate and you're like, hey, want to rent it out to somebody, probably you're not the one buying the machines. They're the one buying the machines.
Right.
But to kind of answer your question, yes, it can be tricky, not just because the machines are expensive, but you've got to probably, if it hasn't been a laundromat before, you've got to build it out, which means you got to make sure things like you've got the right size water lines. So you have enough water coming in to feed all the machines. You've got the right size drainage. You've got electrical that can service all of these machines. You've got ventilation for the dryers so that, the lint is getting out of there, because lint will kill everything. Right. So you've got all these things to sort of manage. And then you've got machine costs, but to kind of give you just like a ballpark of what it would cost, if you had like a 3,000 square foot space, to put new machines in there, you're probably looking at $750,000 plus build out costs from there. So you're looking at that. But just to put it out there for everybody, that can feel very overwhelming to try to figure out what machines to get, because you got a whole bunch of different sizes, how to actually lay them out, make sure they all get installed correctly, all of that stuff. But we actually have a service that will help you we'll help you find the location. We'll do all the demographics for you. We'll help you submit letters of intent to the landlords to try to negotiate those leases. We will help you pick out a machine mix and a layout. We'll help you, we'll introduce you to a contractor that will help with the build out, and we'll manage that build out for you. So it can be overwhelming, but if you work with people who've done it before,
sure,
like anything else, right? It's not nearly as bad as
that would have been so nice for you to have somebody like you when you started.
Yeah. I've said many times, if me back then could have had a 15-minute conversation with me now, it would have saved me 6 figures easy, and a whole lot of heartache and pain.
Oh, that's so hard.
I know. But that's you go through that stuff, and it turns you into who you are, right? Like I wouldn't want to go through it again, but I'm glad I did. Now.
Yeah, it's nice. Yeah, looking back, once you've made it through the weeds, you can start to place some meaning behind it. But man, when you're in it, trying to figure out how to get out of it, that can be. I don't know. I could feel when you were talking about it. I was just thinking that sounds so isolating. Looking for help and nobody is there.
It was super isolating, and it was isolating. And I mean, I guess we're gonna jump into it because you're here pulling it out of me. But it was isolating, even within between my wife and I. Like my whole world, I was like, we've got to figure this thing out. We're bleeding money left and right. I was like all consumed with this, and my wife was like overwhelmed. It was overwhelming. Like it was. I was overwhelmed too. I just didn't feel like I had a choice, but it was overwhelming, and so she couldn't talk about it at all. And so it was like a source of conflict for us. Not even conflict. It was just like, I didn't have anything to talk about but the laundromat. She couldn't talk about the laundromat. So we had this like period of time where we just were not communicating very well for a while. And that was rough.
That is rough, especially when you're in that probably a pinnacle point of time where you need the support of your partner, both of you. And how that's hard when neither one can really have the space or energy to be able to get that.
Yeah. It was tough. But like I said, I mean, I feel like now, like, at least from my side, she might say something different, but from my side of things, I'm like, man, if we if we survived that, like we're good. Like I can't get us into problems that we can't get out of now, which is more likely than the other way. Her getting us into problems, more likely than I'm going to get us into problems. But
hey, you were going to be good at a condo in Hawaii.
I mean, I do remind her of that every now and then. Like this whole thing kind of is your fault.
Okay. Yeah, is it at the point where you guys could laugh about that now? How do you guys talk about it, or do you at this point?
Yeah. Now, I mean, listen, there's still a few things that happened over there, because for me, and I don't want to like go too far into this because this is not typical at all. But also, it wasn't just that we were losing money. The particular laundromat that they sold me, the previous owner had just let it go and like almost never went there, and so literally it had become gang turf. And so not only were we losing money, but I was literally in a gang fight, like a turf war with a gang.
Wow.
What? Is that something you have to disclose to clients if they're buying a property? This is part of a turf?
In Virginia,
Apparently not. I don't know. I mean,
in Virginia, no, that would be a crime, and anything like that is on the purchaser to do due diligence on.
How in the world do you figure that out before you buy a property?
yeah, I don't know. And again, I don't want to, that was not a typical scenario. But it was so, I mean, there's all that to say, like, there's still a few things that my wife doesn't know that happened over there. But for the most part, yes, we can talk about it all.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I'm glad you got out of there.
Dang, yeah.
Yeah. Well, and it was better, like after, literally I fought, some and, cleaned it up and all that. It was better. Like it wasn't like, and it wasn't like I would bring my kids there sometimes and, like during the day, but like I'd bring my kids there. So it wasn't like crazy, super dangerous, but there was that conflict going on and there was dangerous situations that happened early on there until things kind of cleaned up.
Wow.
So, yeah.
That's incredible. Well, thank you for sharing that. I know it sounds like that is not necessarily a memory you enjoy going back to, but it sounds like a big part of your story though, because it ended up getting you to where you are now.
Yeah. Well, and it was just, I mean, it was rough all around, right? Because we were losing money. We were expecting to be making money. I was spending a ton of time there when I was expecting to spend very little time there. And I had 2 young kids and, I'm like getting in fights and I'm like, dude, this is stupid because all it takes is one thing to happen and that's it. Right. Like,
seriously.
but it's like you go through things and you get better and you learn and, and you come out the other side and keep going.
Would there be, I picked up that you felt like things weren't handled the best from the broker side. So at that time you were not an agent, I imagine.
No, I wasn't an agent yet. And this is a laundromat specific broker here. So, and there's some good ones, but there's a lot of really bad ones here. Not like in real estate. I mean, real estate agents are.
Oh no,
we're all great.
What I was getting at was, is there any lessons I think that could come from that, or any insights to how people should operate? Because I think that sometimes people maybe sacrifice the long-term deals for the short-term gains. And like I would imagine you would use this agent again, and you've now purchased multiple. Is there anything like that you would?
Yeah. Well, and it's way worse than that for the broker, because now, a lot of people in this industry get their education about the industry through me and my platform. And a lot of my consulting clients who are in LA area, not only will I not recommend that broker, I will, because they're still around, but I will tell them like, this is the person who I had my first experience with. Right. Sure. Like, yeah. So, I mean, I think they've lost out on a lot of business because of that. How they did that. Right. So, for me, it's all about the long-term perspective and sort of that abundance mindset, I guess, is like, if I'm an agent or if I'm this broker and I would tell the client, like, hey, this is a rough area. Here's kind of the situation. Because I'd want somebody to walk into that knowingly, especially if it's going to be dangerous, right? I want them to walk into that knowingly. But also, if they weren't going to walk into it, if that's not a good fit for them, I just got to believe that we'll find a good fit for them, and we'll find a good fit for this rough laundromat too, right? There are people who don't have any problems going in that.
So it sounded like there was one agent involved. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I guess, like, you know, again, I don't know the laws in California, but I think in our residential contract, at least, you know, there's like a bunch of it's a buyer beware state, and there's a bunch of disclosures that we go through that the buyer must perform. The seller's making no representations about X, Y, and Z, and one of them is crime and sex offenders, that kind of thing. So I think, you know, in that kind of scenario, one could be like, you know, and you know. If you want to, you can look up these things at these websites. Try to, even if you're not allowed to directly say, you know, there's a significant crime happening here, you could make sure that they are aware that it is on their responsibility to look up that kind of thing.
Yeah, totally. And like I said, like, you know, it's not fully on them, because I didn't know what I was doing. I had no idea, and I relied. And you know, pretty common when it comes to buying a business or a laundromat is the brokers representing both sides. So I also recognize it's a tough situation to be in, right?
But is
is
that full on? Is one party unrepresented, or is that full on, like?
No, dual agency. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, no, that's interesting.
I just wanted to ask you, I guess from the point and maybe even before, I know you had mentioned you were a pastor and youth pastor, and as you transitioned into the laundromat business and made it through some really dark times, I'm just kind of curious, what was it that did keep you grounded, kept you going? It sounded like it was really tough. What did you have around you? What did you use to keep you steady?
Yeah. So, you know, I mean, I still kind of went to church, so that was there. But I mean, honestly, really what kind of kept me going was my family, my wife, my kids, and just, you know, I was trying to do something for our family, right? Like, I was trying to, you know, create some time to spend more time with the family and create, you know, an income so that we had things covered financially. And when that didn't happen, you know, a lot of the motivation behind continuing to try to figure it out was I wanted to perform well for my kids and for my wife, and not, you know, in my own head at least, not look like a failure to my wife and my kids mostly. Right. But also if I'm being, you know, super honest here, the other side of it was like, I also just didn't know how to get out, and whether I was grounded or not almost didn't matter, because I didn't know how to get out of it. Like, we were losing money, and I didn't even know how to, like, sell it or anything. So that also was part of it.
Just trying to make your way through it.
Yeah.
There is, we see this a lot in the people that we talk to, on the guests on this podcast, and maybe you see this too in yours, but it really feels like everybody we talk to, you included, have this, I don't know, this persistence, you know, like I have this vision for myself and my family a lot of times. And even though it's really hard, I'm going to keep going. Because even before you totally got out of that first laundromat, you took on another one. And you're like, you know, I'm going to figure this out. And there's something to that. There's kind of a fire inside of everybody we talk to, that they're not going to just be done. They're going to keep pushing.
Yeah. And I mean, I think that is, honestly, I think that's a huge part of any, like, seeing any kind of success. Like, I just don't, unless you get lucky first time around, like, I just don't think that you can be successful and sustain any kind of success in anything without just persevering, right? What, like walking, what is it? Like in one direction for a long time. I forget the quote. I'm butchering it, but it's,
Love that one.
walk a long time in one direction, right? Like that's kind of, I think, what it takes. And it's probably not that, a coincidence that you're seeing that in a lot of people you've had on the podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And Schwarzenegger talks about it as in 10,000 reps, like anything you want to get good at or succeed in, that you have to put in like a minimum of 10,000 reps. Coming from that bodybuilding world.
Yeah, me too, by the way.
No, that was a really good book, and that's an easy segue to ask you about if you have any good books that you find fundamental for mindset, for business related to laundromats, real estate. Is there anything that you would recommend people check out?
Yeah, I mean, I could rattle off a whole bunch of books. I read a lot of business and personal development books and all that. But I guess, if I was just going to pick one now, I read this one a while back now, but it still sort of just resonates with me with everything I'm doing. But 10X is easier than 2X. I don't know. Have you guys read that one?
It's on my list.
We have a long reading list. It's on it.
Yeah, bump it up. It's good. Yeah. It's a really good one. It just kind of forced me to think bigger. And, I also read, I think Grant Cardone's 10X rule. So I was kind of familiar with the concept of like, hey, thinking bigger and stuff. But the way that 10X is easier than 2X kind of frames it out just clicked with me for some reason. And I just, it opened my eyes to like, there's a lot bigger world out there, right? So whether you're a real estate agent and your goal is to, have gross commission income of $1 million or whatever. And, one thing that I was realizing was like, you could go sell a bunch of $150,000 houses, but to get to $1 million, you got to go, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But if you're thinking, hey, my goal is to get to $10 million, like I don't know if you can do it in a year with $150,000 houses. Right. You've got to think differently, and then you've got to do different things, right? So you're probably going after those $5-10 million listings plus, right, at that point, or something else, right? Like you can't do the same things to get those results. And I guess the book is saying like, hey, if you're trying to double it, like you were trying to go from 1 million to 2 million, your tendency is just going to be to try to muscle it, right? And do, okay, I did 150 houses this year. I'm going to do 300 and try to get to 2 million, right? And just try to muscle it. But if you go to 10X, there's just no way you can muscle it. You've got to shift and do something different. So anyways, for me, it was like a big aha moment.
That's so cool. It just occurred to me, bear with me, but that's exactly how I approach weightlifting too. Just instead of hitting a 1 rep max and then, working off of that, often like in our CrossFit classes, it's like, do 65-70% of your 1 rep max. And I was like, well, here's where I want it to be. So this is what I'm going to go for then. And this, work your way up to as big as you want to go.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're doing 70% of your goal max. That's awesome. Yeah. That one is definitely high on the list, and we are working on some delegation ourselves. So Who Not How, also by the same authors, is another one that's high on the list that I've started. I think I have probably about 7 to 10 books that I've started. Probably. I wish I could leave this podcast every time and like dedicate like 4 to 6 hours just to get these books done, because I'm always so motivated to read them after talking.
I know.
so true. But you're also writing your own book. So you could read, you could write a little bit.
That's right.
I just need more time.
Yeah.
10x my time. But no, that's awesome. And you
or do you need more time, or do you need to spend your time on higher income producing activities to free up more of your time? Because also buy back your time. Not to drop in another, but you dropped in another one, so I'm gonna drop in buy back your time was another huge, I don't know. Have you read that one?
I'm like halfway through that one as well.
That was another big perspective shift for me.
Totally.
So maybe combine those ones, and then you'll free up your time to read more books.
That is the goal. That is definitely the goal. And I think whatever you're chasing, whatever you're doing, I think, whenever you can surround yourself with ideas or people that are, way further ahead than you are, you're just going to be motivated. You're going to see things in a new way. And books are such an excellent, easy, accessible resource to do that. So huge fan of reading, and just need to work on the finishing.
Yeah. Get some on audio while you're out there lifting and CrossFit.
Totally love audiobooks. And have you done the Kindle Whisper Sync? That's my favorite.
No, I haven't, but that's cool. Yeah.
If I can be listening to it for the majority of the time, but then I can open the digital book and actually take a note or highlight or whatever. And then sometimes if I'm able to sit down and actually kind of want to read, I can kind of follow along while it's reading to me, which that's cool. I like. Tell us some more about your coaching, and what people, if they want to reach out, they're interested in the laundry business, how they could reach out to you and get help, and the resources you have, your podcast, etc.
Yeah. So the platform and the podcast and the socials and everything is Laundromat Resource. It's just what it sounds like. A bunch of resources for anybody who owns laundromats or wants to own their first laundromat. Lots of free stuff over there. Lots of free tools and resources. We've got a podcast where, I think we're getting close to 175 episodes, long form interviews with laundromat owners and other people in the industry. So lots of great stuff over there. And then we've got a consulting team over there that you can book a call with if you got questions about just in general or, specific deal stuff. But then also, we've got a program that'll kind of help you get from wherever you're starting, which is probably, if you're listening to this, which is probably, I'm interested in buying a laundromat, all the way through scaling up an empire, if that's what you want to do. And we've got some, we teach you how to do it options. We've got some we do it with you options. We've got some we do it for you options over there for all that. But like I said, there's also a ton of stuff over there for free that you can go download. There's a free course on how to buy your first laundromat. It's 3 lessons, jam-packed with a ton of really great information. And I know that for a fact. I'm not patting myself on the back. However, I've done a webinar almost every week for the past 3 years. And so I'm gathering questions. I'm hearing from people what questions they have. And so all that information is just packed in those 3 lessons. So super good foundation for you over there, and a bunch of other free stuff. Laundromatresource.com.
Awesome.
That's awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for doing this. First and foremost, I think that anybody that's interested, I know that if I were looking to, if a laundromat comes our way, we would have no idea what to do. So having that resource sounds amazing. And thank you so much for being on the show.
Yeah, no, thank you for having me on the show. And listen, I, as a fellow real estate agent over here on the best coast, I am I'm pretty passionate about helping real estate agents kind of build their wealth. I think too many of us are just representing other people buying and selling real estate or businesses or whatever, and we're not doing enough of it ourselves to build our long-term wealth. And so talk about 10x is easier than 2x, maybe set a goal to buy some real estate or a business or something yourself and build your own wealth, because that's what's going to give us the time that we want to read more books or to lift heavier or whatever it is that we're trying to do. So build some wealth. Yeah.
That's perfect. I couldn't have said it any better. Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks for listening to the REI Agent.
If you enjoyed this episode, hit subscribe to catch new shows every week.
Visit reiagent.com for more content.
Until next time, keep building the life you want.
All content in the show is not investment advice or mental health therapy. It is intended for entertainment